I'm Dave Kaiser from CCX Media. Thanks for joining us for this special update from the city of Brooklyn Park. We're joined by the Fire Chief, John Cunningham. John, how are you today?
I'm doing well. It's great to be on and great to reach out to the community.
It's great to have you today to explain a little bit of the planning that has gone into Brooklyn Park's response and also some very timely things that are questions that are coming to the fire department. Let's talk about the planning and just the setup. Emergency operation in the city of Brooklyn Park. What does it look like? What have you planned for and what is in place?
Sure. So in an emergency operations center, our focus is to not only plan for what's happening today, but also to look out towards the future. So when we started to realize that this coronavirus disease or COVID-19 was going to have an impact on the United States, we wanted to be ready. So we actually stood up our emergency operations center in early March, and we were one of the first communities to do that and to just be proactive on planning for what this might have as a local impact on our community. So what that did is looking at situational awareness on becoming ready and be prepared for what might be coming. And we've taken that stance since we opened up the EOC and the city council taking additional action to declare a local state of emergency, which was echoed across the state as well as the country. And realize that we are all in this together, and from a public safety standpoint, that we're actively collaborating with our mutual aid partners, with the state, and then also tuned in at the federal level to make sure that we're getting current information on what's happening.
Who are the key players within the city as far as the Emergency Operations Center? Obviously yourself, but who are some of those other key players, and what does a day look like in that center?
Sure. So we have kind of a set rhythm every single day. It's led by the fire and police command staff. So we have both public safety entities in the EOC, but we've also brought in other city departments, from our communications team to some of our community outreach, realizing that we want to just have a pulse on the community as well, because we ultimately are there to serve our residents and businesses and everyone that calls Brooklyn Park home or travels into the city. So we want to make sure that we are aware of that as well, and that we prepare and plan for their needs and just have a pulse on the community. So we really have a diverse group that's in the EOC, but our day is, we have briefings in the morning with our command and general staff, which is half virtual and half people that are in the EOC, and we practice our own social distancing.
Sure.
So that's important. But then we also have regular briefings with our county as well as the state. So we report out. One of the branches that's been very active from the get-go is our logistics branch, and they are responsible for securing any equipment that we might need, including disinfectants, PPE, and personal protective equipment. Right. Make sure our frontline first responders have the equipment that they need to protect themselves, as well as the public and the patients that they might be assisting.
A few times as we talk, we'll pass along the city's website, brooklynpark.org. That's the place to go to stay up to date. And so the chief and others in the city, as he mentioned on the team, putting up information to try to keep people up to date. So go to brooklynpark.org. You mentioned community input. Let's talk about the COVID-19 Community Impact Survey. Why was this done, and what have you learned from this?
We thought that the reaching out to the community was very important from an emergency operations standpoint, to get a better understanding of what is going on in our community and what their feeling is. This is an event that is not going to be measured in hours or days, but possibly months at this point. So. Sure. We want to have a good pulse on, what is the community feeling, what are their needs, and what concerns they might have. And what we saw in the initial survey was highly representative of our homeowners. So we're actually doing a second outreach to make sure that we can hear from our renter community as well. Mm-hmm. But we realized just the angst that I think people had, especially early on getting access to their own personal protective equipment, to sanitizing supplies, to just food. And we can't thank our local grocers and those other people that are on the front lines that are continue to work to supply our residents with the essential things that they need to just get nutrition and other things. So we've certainly seen the community really come together and support each other And the goal of the EOC is really to manage resources and to connect people to those resources from a community standpoint. So we're analyzing those and trying to make those connections as we can to people that might need them.
Fantastic. Let's talk a little bit about fire prevention on a
Yeah.
day-to-day basis. That still continues on at this point. Any tips for residents as far as fire prevention and anything
Sure.
related to, I know hand sanitizer has been a little bit of a topic with prevention. Tell us about that.
Yes, so our job doesn't stop in the fire service, and we're kind of turning to the virtual mode of reaching out to our community. So you'll see us on Facebook and Twitter, and we have one opportunity to chat, FaceTime with a fire marshal. So we're trying to have residents have the opportunity to connect with our staff. But we want people to be safe. We realize that people are probably spending more time at home and possibly indoors. The weather is maybe getting a little bit better. But we want people to be safe as well. So just reminding people on safe cooking habits and any of the messages that we see throughout the year, but just reminding them that fire safety does not stop in this instance. When we have seen those instances across the country of people trying to make their own disinfectants and hand sanitizers. And what I would strongly encourage people is, look at our website. There's some safe tips and practices on there, but just be very cautious when you're mixing chemicals together and under any circumstance, because some chemicals do not mix well with others and can actually be quite deadly. So before you do anything, make sure you go to a reputable source to find out what it is that you should be doing if you decide to try and make your own sanitizers or hand cleaners.
Final note we want to pass along, and it might seem strange to come from the fire chief, but a little thought about price gouging in this time as well. From a emergency operations center, you're keeping an eye on that as well and making people aware. Tell us about that.
Sure. So, we've certainly seen an influx in opportunities that vendors might be offering to even our EOC staff. So we're being very mindful of making sure that we are conscious of our own taxpayer dollars and when we're buying equipment and PPE. So I would encourage people to just be mindful of that as well as make sure that you buy from a reputable source. Price gouging, can be reported to the state. It's not right. It's illegal and that shouldn't be happening. So just be cautious on when you're making these purchases and don't get taken advantage of, because in the EOC, we are also putting that same lens on it to make sure that we're being mindful of our taxpayers when we're buying things and that we're not being taken advantage of too.
Final thought, how about a note of reassurance then for residents? What do you have to say to the residents to assure them that you are watching things and that things will get better?
Sure. We're all in this together. We are one Brooklyn Park, we're one country, and we're one world. And what we do collectively to mitigate this crisis that we're in, we will come out on top of this. It will be probably a new normal. We acknowledge that as a country and as a world, but we all need to work together. And I think when you look locally and across the country, we are doing just that. When we stand together, united to overcome the greatest obstacle, we will come out on top. When I look back on September 11th and look at that time in our country and having worked at ground zero, we came out of that a better nation. It was a horrific event, but we truly came out as united as a country. And I'm hopeful that when we look back on this, that we see the great things that people are doing to support one another as a community and as a country. And we're seeing that happen today by people making their own face masks, to donating goods, to supporting their neighbors. And I think that's what we need to focus on and support one another because we are all in this together.
Chief, thank you so much for your words and for your time today and for your efforts and that of your staff as well. We want to leave you again with the city's website, brooklynpark.org. Again, a lot of information there. You can find out about the latest updates and information that the city is passing along. Thank you, Chief. Stay safe, and we hopefully will talk to you again soon.
Thank you.
Learn more about the connection at ccxmedia.org and follow us on social media.